Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Last week, the first two episodes of Amazon's new Lord of the Rings show, titled The Rings of Power, were released, and today I'll be giving my thoughts on these two pilot episodes. But before we get started, please consider subscribing if you want to see more movie-related content. I recently uploaded a video ranking each of the Alien movies, so if you think that you'd find that interesting, the video is linked in the description. With that over with, let's get into Middle-earth. The show starts with a prologue narrated by Galadriel, which pays homage to how Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings started. The prologue explains how Middle-earth has been at war with the all-evil Morgoth, one of the Ainur, who are primordial spirits and are immortal. After suffering heavy losses, the forces of Valinor finally defeat Morgoth, ending a war which spanned centuries and leaving Middle-earth in ruin. Once Morgoth was defeated, his most devoted servant, Sauron, continues his master's war effort, leading Galadriel's brother, Finrod, to seek him out and try and destroy him. After being defeated himself, Galadriel vows to avenge her brother's death and fulfill his oath to defeat Sauron, thus transforming her into the battle-hardened warrior depicted in the first two episodes of this show. My first impressions of the show are good. So far, so good, at least. The production value looks incredible, but this is to be expected, to be honest, especially considering that Amazon have reportedly spent over $450 million on this opening 8-episode season alone, giving each episode an average budget of around $58 million, making it by far the most expensive television show ever. A good place to start would be with the characters, and there are lots to get into. The lead protagonist is Galadriel, of whom we're familiar with already following Sir Peter Jackson's trilogies, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. It's worth noting, however, that Galadriel's depiction in this show is very different to that of Peter Jackson's films. In the films, Galadriel is shown as docile and fragile, and she's portrayed as powerful in the films, but in a way which doesn't impact her appearance. In this show, Galadriel often wears armour and carries a sword, therefore portraying her much more as a warrior than previously seen. The differences in character traits are so unalike that it would be near impossible to predict that the two representations are in fact the same character. I think it's obvious after watching the first two episodes that you need to think of this show as its own thing, since it is hardly related to The Lord of the Rings at all, and its events take place thousands of years before those of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Elrond is another character who we're familiar with, however, similarly to Galadriel, he is depicted differently in this show. I will say, however, that the fact that these characters are different is not synonymous with them being bad. In reality, these characters are fine, and it just comes down to individual taste which you prefer. Personally, I prefer both depictions from the films for both characters. However, I think that Elrond in this series is intriguing and relatable, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the character develops. Moving on to the new roles, we're introduced to a plethora of good characters of a vast range of races such as elves, half-orcs, dwarves and men. One of the most intriguing new characters to me is Arondir, a sylvan elf who is stationed near a village of men named Tirharad as a watchman or some sort of soldier of some kind. Another character in the show which has baffled other viewers, as it has me, is that of the Stranger, a man-like figure who lands on Middle-earth emerging from the crash site of a comet. There are several theories online regarding the identity of this character, and some people reckon that this individual is actually a wizard, perhaps Gandalf or maybe Radagast. It would be great to see this character unveiled as one of the wizards, however, as yet it's not been revealed, so I don't want to get my hopes up. It would be pretty great to see how Gandalf arrived at Middle-earth though. Of all of the characters in the show, there is just one wherein I recognise the actor, and that is Benjamin Walker, who portrays Gil-galad, who's the king of the High Elves, and is residing at Lindon, the same place where Elrond lives. I've seen Benjamin Walker in a few things, most notably In the Heart of the Sea, where I thought his performance was great and really impacted the film positively. Coming back to the budget of the show, it is clear how much money has been spent on these episodes, with the production quality being beyond impressive. The set design, costume design and practical effects are all amazing, and there is so much detail that it really is reminiscent of Peter Jackson's Middle-earth films. Perhaps the best example of practical effects being used rather than CGI is on the orcs. They look great, and to be honest, even better than they did in Peter Jackson's movies. I'm so glad that the production team has decided to use practical effects instead of CGI, since it looks way more realistic and therefore more engaging and believable. Not only do the makeup and prosthetics used look amazing, but the prop design, set design and costume design are true spectacles. There is a huge problem in modern blockbuster movies where the exact opposite of this happens, and the viewer is left consciously aware that they are simply watching a fictional story. What this show does right is that the viewer is left captivated and immersed in the world of Middle-earth and can escape from reality for the whole 1 hour runtime of each episode. The recently released film Top Gun Maverick is conceivably a game changer in the department of using practical effects, primarily again in cinematic productions. Top Gun Maverick used almost exclusively practical effects, and as a result, the movie was incredibly captivating, making it not only a great experience, but also more enjoyable and more memorable. The scale of some of the shots in these first 2 episodes is phenomenal, with establishing shots of cities, shots of mountains, and of other landscapes. The production team primarily filmed in New Zealand, dubbed by some as the home of Middle-earth, after Peter Jackson filmed his 2 trilogies there. The landscape shots are just as good as they are in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and New Zealand is a truly amazing place and a high priority destination that I'd like to visit. The shots of cities, most notably Valinor and Khazad-dûm, are also incredible. They look great, and the sense of scale which comes across is amazing. I'm so glad that we're getting to see Khazad-dûm again after the journey through the city in the Fellowship of the Ring is one of my favourite sequences of scenes in the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. The score is good too. It's composed by Bear McCreary, of whom I'm already familiar with after his role in producing scores for The Cloverfield Paradox and The Professor and the Madman. These are another 2 great scores, and I would recommend them to fans of the music genre. Although McCreary composed the main score, the main theme is composed by Howard Shore, one of my favourite score composers. Howard Shore did the music for all 6 of Peter Jackson's Middle-earth films, and they make such a good impression on the movies, complementing them flawlessly and capturing the themes and atmosphere of Middle-earth perfectly. One of the things I didn't particularly like about the first episode in particular is the narrative choices. Galadriel, accompanied by a band of elves, has to face off against a snow troll, and after it almost kills several of her friends, she effortlessly kills it, resulting in a seemingly lazy and boring writing choice. This is a really shaky scene and not a good first impression, especially since it was in the first 15 minutes of the first episode. Another reason that this scene is flawed is that there are a few continuity errors. The number of elves accompanying Galadriel seems to change a few times. There weren't many other scenes like this, if any at all, so I suppose it's just an imperfection which is only natural. Perhaps this scene was rushed during post-production or something, in an effort to finish the season in time for the release date. The pacing in these first 2 episodes isn't great either. I understand that they are packed with setup content intended to get the viewer up to speed with as many of the characters quickly, so that we can get into the meaty parts of the narrative quicker. In an immersive world such as Middle-earth, it is disappointing when you're getting invested into certain characters' plot lines and suddenly it cuts to somewhere else in Middle-earth. It does this several times, and I think it seems a bit rushed. As the series is planned to have 5 seasons, I think it would be fine to perhaps use the first 5 or 6 episodes of season 1 to set up the separate plot lines. The few action sequences that we have seen seem good. During the prologue, we see shots showing a battle during the war against Morgoth, and it looks so good. There is so much attention to detail, and considering that these battle scenes only last a few seconds, the amount of work that's gone into them is exceptional. Overall, I quite enjoyed the first 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings of Power, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how each character develops. As a huge fan of Peter Jackson's Middle-earth films, I can't wait to see more of Middle-earth on screen. Hopefully it maintains its strong start. That's all I've got for today. I might make more videos on this show if I feel there is enough to talk about, however don't count on it. I'll definitely be making a review of the entire first season once all 8 episodes are out though, so stay tuned for that in a few weeks' time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.